December 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The snow was deep. The roads were frozen. American soldiers were tired, cold, and surrounded by fog. Then a terrifying rumor moved through the Allied lines. German commandos were wearing American uniforms. They were driving captured American jeeps. They spoke English. They knew American road signs. And some soldiers believed they were using familiar American names, even names like General Patton, to slip through checkpoints and get closer to one of the most important men in the war. General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Was Eisenhower really about to be killed? Or had Germany created something even more dangerous than an assassination team? A weapon made of fear. This is the story of Operation Greif, one of the strangest and most frightening deception missions of World War II. It was not a normal attack. It was not just tanks, artillery, and infantry. It was a psychological attack, a plan to make American soldiers doubt their own eyes. Because during the Battle of the Bulge, the enemy was not always wearing a German helmet. Sometimes he was wearing your uniform. On December 16, 1944, Adolf Hitler launched his last major offensive in the West. The goal was desperate and bold. German forces would attack through the Ardennes Forest, break through the American lines, cross the Meuse River, and split the Allied armies. If the plan worked, Hitler hoped he could force the Western Allies into confusion and maybe even change the direction of the war. But by late 1944, Germany was running out of time. Its cities were being bombed. Its fuel supplies were weak. Its armies were being pushed back from both east and west. So Hitler needed more than a battlefield attack. He needed shock. He needed panic. He needed the Americans to lose trust in their own rear areas. That is where Otto Skorzeny entered the story. Skorzeny was one of Nazi Germany's most famous commando leaders. He had already built a reputation for dangerous special operations. For the Ardennes offensive, he was given a strange mission: create chaos behind American lines. The mission became known as Operation Greif. German soldiers would wear captured American uniforms. Some would use captured American vehicles. They would move behind Allied lines, change road signs, cut telephone wires, spread false orders, and confuse American traffic. The goal was not only to kill. The goal was to make the American army slow down. In war, a few minutes can matter. A wrong road sign can delay reinforcements. A false order can send a unit in the wrong direction. A broken telephone line can leave a commander blind. A suspicious checkpoint can stop a convoy for hours. And in the Battle of the Bulge, hours could decide whether the German attack kept moving or collapsed. For students and general viewers, this is important to understand. Operation Greif was not powerful because it had huge numbers. It was powerful because it attacked trust. An army depends on trust every second. A soldier trusts the uniform beside him. A driver trusts the road sign. A commander trusts the message. A guard trusts the password. If trust disappears, everything slows down. And in December 1944, trust began to disappear across the American lines. At first, the signs were small. A jeep moved where it should not be. A soldier gave an answer that sounded strange. Someone spoke English, but not quite like an American. Road signs were turned. Rumors spread from unit to unit. German commandos were behind the lines. They were dressed as Americans. They were looking for bridges. They were spreading fake orders. Then the rumors grew darker. Some said the commandos were hunting Allied generals. Some said they wanted to kidnap or kill Eisenhower. Some said they were using passwords and famous American names to get past checkpoints. Whether every detail was true or not, the effect was real. Fear moved faster than the Germans did. Soon, American checkpoints became tense and suspicious. Military police began stopping vehicles. Drivers were questioned. Soldiers were forced to prove they were really American. And the questions were not always military questions. They were cultural questions. Questions only a real American was expected to know. Who won the World Series? What is the capital of Illinois? Who is Mickey Mouse's girlfriend? What team plays in this city? For many soldiers, this became almost absurd. A man could survive artillery, tanks, and snow, and then be held at a checkpoint because he did not know a baseball answer. But the fear was understandable. If a German soldier could wear an American uniform, speak English, and use the right password, then the checkpoint itself became a battlefield. The danger was no longer only in front. It could be behind you. It could be beside you. It could be sitting in the passenger seat of a Jeep. And that is what made the situation so dangerous for Eisenhower. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was the supreme Allied commander in Europe. He was not just another officer. He was the man responsible for coordinating the Allied war in the West. British, American, Canadian, and other Allied forces all depended on the command structure he helped control. If Eisenhower had been killed or captured, the military damage would have been serious. But the psychological damage could have been even worse. Imagine the headlines. German commandos in American uniforms reach Eisenhower. Supreme Allied commander killed behind his own lines. American security broken during the Battle of the Bulge. Even if the front lines did not collapse, the shock would have been enormous. That is why Eisenhower's security suddenly became intense. He was placed under heavy guard. His movement was restricted. His headquarters became more controlled. And according to many accounts of the period, Eisenhower found himself almost like a prisoner of his own protection. This is one of the strangest parts of the story. The Germans did not need to reach him to affect him. The rumor alone was enough to change Allied behavior. That is the power of psychological warfare. A small force can create a large fear if it makes the enemy imagine dangers everywhere. But where does General Patton's name fit into this? Patton was one of the most famous American generals in Europe. His name carried power. His Third Army was known for speed, aggression, and movement. When the Germans attacked in the Ardennes, Patton would soon become central to the Allied response, turning his army north toward Bastogne in one of the most famous movements of the campaign. Because Patton was so famous, his name could become useful in confusion. At checkpoints, passwords and recognition signals mattered. Familiar names, units, and commanders could help a man sound believable. A German infiltrator who knew enough American details might try to sound like he belonged. A name like Patton could feel familiar, official, and urgent. That is why the idea of Germans using Patton's name as a password feels so frightening. It shows how identity itself could be turned into a weapon. A name that normally inspired confidence could suddenly create suspicion. A uniform that normally meant safety could suddenly mean danger. A Jeep that normally belonged to your side could suddenly carry the enemy. This was not just deception. It was the corruption of trust. For construction fans, there is another layer to this story. Armies move like giant machines. They depend on roads, bridges, signs, fuel points, traffic control, and communication lines. During the Battle of the Bulge, the Ardennes road network was narrow, forested, icy, and crowded. Tanks, trucks, ambulances, artillery, and supply vehicles all had to move through limited routes. If one road sign was changed, a convoy could be delayed. If one bridge was taken, an entire front could be threatened. If traffic was blocked, reinforcements could arrive too late. Operation Greif targeted that system. It was not only about fooling soldiers. It was about disrupting the infrastructure of war. Roads became traps. Checkpoints became tests. Bridges became prizes. Signs became weapons, and confusion became a form of attack. That is why the German plan was so dangerous, even though it did not fully succeed. The commandos did not capture the Meuse bridges. They did not kill Eisenhower. They did not reverse the outcome of the war. But they created panic far beyond their real size. American soldiers began questioning one another. Real Americans were delayed. Some officers were treated with suspicion. Even senior commanders could be stopped and challenged. The Allied rear area, which should have been a place of organization, became a place of doubt. And doubt is expensive in war. It costs time. It costs confidence. It costs speed. Patton understood speed better than almost anyone. When the German offensive struck, his Third Army was positioned to the south. The crisis was in the north, around Bastogne and the Ardennes. Patton's ability to turn his army and move toward the battle became one of the most important responses of the campaign. But even Patton's speed depended on trust. Orders had to move. Roads had to be cleared. Units had to know where to go. Drivers had to believe the signs. Guards had to believe the men approaching them. When German infiltrators threatened that trust, they threatened the rhythm of the Allied response. That is the real drama behind this story. It is not only about whether a German commando came close enough to shoot Eisenhower. It is about how close the German plan came to making the Allies fear their own system. And for a short time, it worked. The Battle of the Bulge was already terrifying. American units were surprised. Some were surrounded. The weather was brutal. The forests were confusing. German armor pushed through the snow. And now, behind the lines, soldiers were being told that the man in the American uniform might not be American at all. Think about the pressure on a young guard at a checkpoint. He is cold. He is tired. He may not have slept. A jeep approaches. The men inside wear American uniforms. They speak English. They may know the password. They may mention a famous general. Maybe Patton. Maybe Eisenhower. Maybe a unit name that sounds right. The guard has only seconds to decide. Let them through, and he might be helping the enemy. Stop them, and he might be delaying real American troops. Pull the trigger too fast, and he might kill one of his own. Wait too long, and he might die. This is why Operation Greif became more than a commando raid. It became a test of identity. What makes someone one of us? A uniform? A language? A password? A name? Or something deeper? The Americans responded with suspicion, discipline, and sometimes confusion. Captured German commandos wearing American uniforms were treated as spies. Some were tried by military courts and executed. The message was clear. Wearing the enemy's uniform behind the lines was not a harmless trick. It crossed a dangerous line. For Germany, the mission did not achieve its main battlefield goal. For the Allies, it became a warning. Modern war is not only about weapons. It is about information. It is about signals. It is about trust. A false uniform can be as dangerous as a rifle. A fake order can move men into danger. A wrong sign can waste the most precious thing in battle, time. And a rumor can travel faster than a tank. That is why the Eisenhower scare still feels powerful. Even if the plot to kill him was exaggerated by rumor, the fear around it was real. The security response was real. The confusion at checkpoints was real. The German infiltrators were real, and the lesson was real. An army can be strong in numbers, strong in weapons, and strong in leadership. But if it cannot trust what it sees, it becomes slower, nervous, and vulnerable. In the end, Eisenhower survived. Patton moved. The Allied armies recovered. Bastogne held. The German offensive failed, and Operation Greif became remembered as one of the strangest episodes of the Battle of the Bulge. It was a mission that failed in its main objective, but succeeded in creating fear. It did not kill Eisenhower, but for a time, it made the Allies protect him as if danger was already at the door. It did not stop Patton, but it showed how even Patton's name could become part of a battlefield of deception. And it did not win the war for Germany, but it proved something chilling. In war, the enemy does not always need to break your lines. Sometimes he only needs to break your confidence. That is the lasting lesson of this story. The Battle of the Bulge was fought with tanks, artillery, rifles, and courage. But it was also fought with rumors, passwords, road signs, uniforms, and fear. And on those frozen roads in Belgium, American soldiers learned a hard truth. A password can open a checkpoint. A uniform can hide a lie. A famous name can create trust. And trust, once broken, can be harder to repair than a bridge. If this story made you see World War II in a different way, subscribe for more documentary-style history stories. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield is not the one that fires. It is the one that makes you doubt the person standing next to you.